Hello, welcome to the first devlog for Keysight 2. This is going to be a bit of a strange one compared to future devlogs. This will be a lot longer and with more me, because I want to talk about the history of Keysight, where it came from, the problems that have developed along the way, and why I'm bothering to build an entirely new program rather than just update what we already have. So if you want to see direct, like, this is a feature that is going to exist in Keysight 2, this is what it does, this video is not going to have any of that. Skip ahead. But either way, let's move on over and just talk about some stuff. Right, I thought this would be a good place to start. This is the update history for Keysight, just to kind of show that, man, it's been 3.5 years or so of having Keysight on Steam at the time of recording. Going way back even further than this. I have a background of 3D art stuff. I started doing 3D art using Blender in 2013 and 2014, that kind of area. I then studied video game design and production at university between 2014 and 2017. During that time, we were introduced to Unreal Engine for a bunch of modules. So I'm sure you can see where this is going. I started streaming piano back in 2018, March 2018. Then in somewhere around June 2019, I started playing around with the MIDI plugin for Unreal Engine with the goal of just making the stream more exciting, right? Having some nice MIDI reactive lights, that kind of thing. That got a surprising amount of attention. Specifically from Glooks, formerly known as Wesp on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen any of his old videos. But yeah, he offered to buy like a license to my visualization stuff because he liked it. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept, isn't it? Man, imagine if I made a program for MIDI visualization and then sold it to people. So really, you can thank Glooks for having Keysight, just at all. But yeah. I started working on a distributable version of a MIDI visualizer back in January of 2020. That was just originally called Eggs MIDI Visualizer and sold to just a couple of people directly. It was very basic. In fact, yeah, let's see if I can find some footage of it. Yeah, the MIDI visualizer as it originally was built, despite being really basic, enough people were interested in it where I thought it would be a good idea to put it on Steam, to make it easier for people to find and get licenses to. Because, I mean, I was taking like direct PayPal payments and then sending people like a build, you know, via a Google Drive link. It wasn't very professional. But yeah, so Keysight got released on Steam around June 30th. 2020, so 6 months after I started development, it was already like up on a storefront, which is kind of insane. It was in a really rough basic state. Yeah, here we go. Check this out. This is the first post on Steam. I think I'll show off the actual like original. Hang on. Here we go. This is the earliest version of Keysight that you can still access. This is version 1.1.3 or something like that. When did this come out? Sometime around July 2020. So this is what got released on Steam, basically. Like, I mean, look at this. This hurts me looking at it now. But this is, people paid $30 for this. And, you know, if you're watching this and you were one of those people, why? Why did you do that? Yeah, it's a mess. There's no like Control Z, Control Y. There's no undo, redo. You have a maximum of 5 preset slots. You know. Yeah, let's actually get some stuff spawning. How exciting! What is going on with these shadows, man? What was I doing? This is what Keysight was to begin with. Moving swiftly onwards, though. So going forward, the key moments in the sort of Keysight history, the timeline as it were, it was released June 24th, 2020. In December 2020, we had the first major overhaul Oh, I don't even have any pictures of it. Man, I was bad at doing posts. But yeah, December 2020 was the first update towards the menu layout that we have now. It's evolved a little bit since then, but broadly the menu as it stands today was implemented way back in December 2020. Yeah, MIDI files weren't even a thing until January 2021. Keysight version, let's see, like 1.3. This was a huge one. This was the new particles. I moved from Cascade systems to Niagara systems. That was June 2021. Yeah, new particles, new piano models, JSON save files, graphics presets, default presets, like all of that happened in 1.3. Big update. So the next major one would be 1.4. Look, I was started to do GIFs. It happened. I figured it out. Tooltips, because up until now, tooltips basically didn't exist. We've got GIFs on pulsars, and pulsars got overhauled kind of to bring them in line with the new particles from 1.3. More default presets, way better performance. When was that? That was December 2021. So that was like a year and a half after launch, you know, we had tooltips for menu buttons. Right, and then June 2022 is when we got light bars and render to video, you know, those two like core features that everybody wants. Very exciting. This was, I remember this being very stressful to release, but very worth it. That takes us dangerously close to modern Keysight. We were at 1.6 now. This came out November 2022, and this was the reflections system and a bunch of improvements to render to video, a piano model rebuild, being able to simulate 16 channels of simulation data and stuff. But yeah, this reflections was also a big leap forward in visual quality. Right, and then finally, Keysight 1.6.1 was intended to be the final version for Keysight, to the point where I told my macOS developer who handles the porting over to macOS, I told him to like tear apart the setup to make any more builds because we didn't need it anymore. So he did. And then, you know, I decided that I'd make another update and then I couldn't release it on macOS. Whoops. That's my bad. Apologies still for that. 1.6.1, this was preset import and export. Being the last update, I wanted to try and make this one like kind of solve the menu usability problem by just allowing you to import files from other people who have, you know, invested the sanity and the time and effort into learning how to use Keysight. Right, with that, I think that covers like the sort of timeline of updates and how we went from something that was completely unusable and terrible and did very little to what we have today, which, you know, is used by a surprising number of people, especially streamers. Now I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about what I see as the problems in Keysight. Here we are in the most recent version. And the first thing, the most obvious thing, the thing that really spawned the concept of a Keysight 2.0 overhaul is the menu. Even with just the default presets, like having to scroll this is horrible. Like, how many times do you ever actually click these buttons and yet they're always here taking up space? And we haven't even opened a menu yet, right? Like, this whole thing is just really painful to use. Like, oh, you know, I want to go down to impact lights. Oh, cool. Like, now I go back. It's just kind of, everything's just more annoying than it needs to be, you know? And also, everything is just walls and walls of sliders that I feel so embarrassed every time I really think about my own menu, because this is not a good user experience. Sure, you're doing some complex stuff. There's a lot of data to be manipulating, but this isn't the way to do it. Suffering through this, you know, it's not fun. And that's really why I wanted to build a big overhaul in the first place. Originally, I had planned to sort of make a Keysight 2.0 update for Keysight that replaced the menu. In terms of other issues with Keysight 1, there's also the sense that, like, when you click things, you don't get any feedback for what they did, you know? Like, I'm changing the note shape, but if you don't know what a note object is and you can't visualize these different options, that's what happened, you know? Like, seemingly nothing. You have to be, like, testing the preset and then, you know, cycling through and then paying attention for... And this is a really obvious one, you know? You can start doing stuff like this option. What does that do? I don't know. It didn't seem to change anything, right? So that is something that I would like to solve, is this concept of being able to see what the options do, not just having to read a really long tooltip or spend minutes figuring out the tiny change that it made. Yeah, going back to these icons, like up here, there's a lot of this, where there's a lot of buttons that are sort of always shown that very few people need access to. There's a lot of wasted space that causes clutter. And quite frankly, like, the UI is just ugly. Like, it's not good. The way that everything is instantly responsive kind of also contributes to this feeling of being overwhelmed. When you click material, like, all of a sudden you have this huge menu explode in front of your eyeballs. It's not great. I mean, I'm in the default colors, even if I switch this to the much more popular, like, you know, dark mode. It's still ugly. Like, if you squint, you can't read anything. Everything just kind of blurs together, and it's like, I'm just being overwhelmed. I hate it. And yeah, the reason why I'm so caught up on this like menu ugliness and difficulty of being used is because a lot of the questions that in fact, like 90% of the questions in the Discord that I answer boil down to, can Keysight do this thing? And the answer is always yes, but then I have to, like, give a 12-step instruction on how. And that's a big failure on the part of the menu, because, you know, if Keysight has a feature, you should be able to find and use that feature without having to ask the developer. That's a pretty basic, pretty low-level ask, I think, of any program, that if it has a feature, you should be able to use it. Outside of the menu, the other issues is that there's a lot of things that are inconsistent in their implementation and in their feature set. So, for example, particles have templates that you can add, which are really nice, right? Because configuring an entire particle system from the ground up is so much work. So it's really nice. I find it nice to be able to just be like, I want some plasma, you know, and then boom, we have some plasma. But not everything has that, right? Pulsars have it, but note objects do not. Even though, you know, all of this stuff, maybe you just want a template of, like, I want some nice, you know, black border, semi-rounded notes. I just want my basic notes, you know? And that's because this system is older than these systems. There's a lot of things in Keysight where, as I discovered what it is that it should do, I added in those features, but then obviously didn't go back and change it everywhere else, because that would have been a huge amount of work. Finally, it is actually impossible for me to localize Keysight in the sense of translate it to different languages, right? The way that all of this is set up is there was never any affordances for changing language down the line. So I just can't anymore. There's just too many things. There's too many things that would have to be replaced. In order for this to support localization, I would have to rebuild the entire thing anyway. So that is a very big problem with Keysight, because it's bad enough that it's hard to use even if you speak the language. But for you poor souls out there, you know, where English is not your first language, trying, like, you hover over this, you know, when enabled, if a new note is spawned at a location where an existing note has not yet scaled to its minimum size, the old object is forcibly released. This allows individual note events to remain clear even on rapid repeat key presses. That's hell. I'm sorry, you know, and having it in different languages would be a huge help. So yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to just tear it all down, start from the ground up. So why is it that I'm so set on tearing everything apart and building from the ground up? Like, that's so much work. The Keysight, this has 3.5 years, 4 years of development put into it, you know? And I'm just going to throw it out the window and start again. Trust me, that doesn't feel good. But I feel like I have to. You've probably heard the expression technical debt before, but just in case you haven't or you don't understand what it means, technical debt is where, due to decisions that you made very early on in a development process, you've made it more difficult for yourself later on. Keysight is like 90% technical debt because Keysight has existed for 4 years. And that means that 4 years ago, I didn't know that I needed to support templates for objects, you know? I didn't have an idea of having templates for stuff. So the template system is just awkwardly piled on top of all the other stuff. There's one example of technical debt, you know, but it's everywhere. It's just absolutely everywhere in Keysight, and it makes implementing core system changes incredibly painful. Aside from the technical debt making just overhauling stuff really painful, Keysight, in terms of the time that I spend developing it, it's like 80% menu and 20% actually making effects. Effects are comparatively really easy to make versus the menu that controls them. Like all of this stuff, making all of this do things is the hard part. So if I have this idea to overhaul the menu to fix the experience there, I'm already doing 80% of the work of rebuilding Keysight. I might as well just start again from the ground up and address all the other stuff at the same time. That, and with it being so different, so logically, right, going from like, oh, let's rework the menu. Okay, but the menu is most of Keysight. Okay, we'll rework all of Keysight in the process. Even if I did all of that, you could still make an argument of like, oh, just release it for an update for Keysight 1. But because the data would be so fundamentally different, it would force people into losing a bunch of data or awkwardly up converting stuff. I don't even know whether that would be possible. Or having Keysight 2.0 as something that people to opt into. It's just not very well communicated if a huge overhaul were to take place on an existing license. I feel like it is easier to communicate the scale of change by having an entirely new license, and it makes it much more convenient for people who don't want change, who have it locked in the way they want it. They don't ever need to touch the menus. You know, I don't want to disturb those people by releasing an update. So I think I'm done rambling about the problems of Keysight and why I wanted to build Keysight 2. As a little reward for sticking around, I think I'm going to switch over and show you what I have for Keysight 2 right now, because I have been working on this since April of 2023. It is now November. I haven't been working on it full-time. Keysight is not my full-time job. You know, I need to do things to eat. But yeah, let's show you what I've got so far. Behold, a menu, or at least something that looks like a menu. Yeah, this is Keysight 2, kinda, you know, the start of it anyway. I wanted to show off just how little there is, even though a bunch of stuff is done, and I can't wait to record some devlogs talking about how it has improved over Keysight 1. But, you know, much as this looks great, yeah, there's not much in like any other menu. There sure as hell is not a preset. There's no effects, there's no nothing, you know, there's just a blank screen right now. But yeah, we have moving stuff. That took a while, I can tell you that much. Stay tuned for more devlogs talking about specific features. The very first one that I'm going to be doing is talking about the menu feel versus Keysight 1. I'm sure you can already like see some of this, you know? But I'll do a deep dive talking about how it was implemented, what it does, what all the features are, things like that. In the next video. So I guess get subscribed if you want to see that. If you want to take part in discussion of Keysight 2, if you want to test out builds, if you want to play with this yourself for whatever reason, like you can't do much in it, but still. If you want to try it out for yourself, if you want to just get support with Keysight, join the Discord. It's in the description. And yeah, I don't know, I'm looking forward to showing stuff off a little bit more officially, rather than just at the end of one of my streams every now and again. Until then, happy key sighting. See you guys later.